Welcome to Inside the Headset. New Palestine High School football coach Kyle Ralph, and special teams coordinator, wide receiver coach Wes Anderson. Coach, a second half today that we're going to cover of the 2018 regional championship against Lafayette Harrison, and a game that we did the first half yesterday, and we go in the locker room with a 17-7 lead. And one of the things we were just talking about before we started recording here was how few possessions we had in this game. Now, that's been a topic of conversation for us a couple times, and I've mentioned that that's something that I'm kind of aware of in my head as the game goes on, because like I said, I think as efficient as we are, the more possessions we get, the more points we're going to score. We had the ball 4 times in the first half. We scored 3. We're only going to get the ball another 3 times in the game for a grand total of 7, and that last drive was just to run the clock out. So really in 6 drives, we score 5 times and score 31. And I think, people ask the question a lot about what makes, how we score all these points. And, so obviously we're very efficient, and, we run the ball really well, and our zone game is really strong, and our offensive line does a great job and all that stuff. But I think this is a prime example, and we've talked a couple of other examples. This is something that Pendleton Heights has done this to us a couple of times, done it really well, where they just make us stand there on the sideline, and their offense just chews clock. And I think this is probably the prime example of that, where, Harrison has the ball for so long in this game, and we only get the ball really 6 times. That's the games where we get it 10 or 11 times are the games where we score 50 or 60. The games where we get it 6 are the games that we score 35 or 42.
Yeah. Like you said, it really just comes down to efficiency. And can we be good enough with the football when we get it? I think that a lot of these teams decide that they're going to play kind of that math game. If like you said, if you're going to give us the ball 10, 11, 12 times and we can score on even half of those, you're giving up 35 to 42 points. And usually we've been more efficient than that. But that's kind of what you're looking at, maybe bare minimum. If you give it to us 6 times and we can score on half of those, well, now you're only getting us to 21. And I think to a lot of people that seems reasonable, that they could potentially, score with that, and be able to play that kind of a game essentially against us. So I do understand it, and it does make sense to me. But, the problem is with that, you also limit your touches as an offense, and our defense is really good, or has been really good. So you've got to be as efficient essentially. But I think, like you said, the overarching philosophy there for teams that play against us in that regard is you're trying to keep our offense out of rhythm. So if we give them 6 touches, we think they can score on 3 of them probably. If we keep them off rhythm, does that maybe only make them score on 2, or maybe they only score on 1? And now you're talking about being able to upset us and be in a game. So, it really hasn't paid off for anybody yet. There have been a few teams, like you mentioned, Pendleton Heights is one of them, that has done this quite a bit and has had some success with it against us. Inevitably, though, we do settle in, and our kids have done a great job of that. The other hard part, I would say, honestly, is it's not easy to stay in this type of a game plan for teams very long. You do start to, if we can get up by 14 points, especially, which is what's happened to teams who have done this to us before. If we can get up by 14 points, all of a sudden you start to feel that squeeze again of like, oh no, here we go. This is going to get out of hand here in a second. And they'll abandon that. And then they play right back into our hands again. And Harrison's not, like I said yesterday, we felt like Harrison would have to do that. And kind of our speech at halftime actually revolves a little bit around that as well, but they don't. They stayed in their, plan, and they stick to their guns here, and they are going to snap the ball with 1 to 2 seconds on the delay game clock every single play. They're not going to put it in the air. Again, their whole thing was to manage how much we could score in the hopes that they could knock our efficiency down, and they, they're down. It's 17-7 right now, so they're by no means are they out of the game or something. But I was really surprised that they really just had the discipline to just stay with what they did the entire time, because a lot of teams don't. A lot of teams, again, they're going to kind of hit that proverbial panic button there, and they're not going to do that. They're going to, oh no, we're down. We're down 10. If it becomes down 17, we're in a lot of trouble. Now we're down 17. Now we are in trouble. We got to start. We got to start moving here, and it kind of plays right back into giving our offense the ball more. But yeah, it is an interesting strategy. We've had teams that just want to try to get in a shootout. They'll come out and all of a sudden they'll be super high tempo, and they'll try to create more possessions for themselves to, essentially want to get in a shootout with us. And sometimes that, again, it can or can't work. But this was,
But I'll say this too, before you go any further, I'll say this too. I think those situations when teams try to get in a shootout with us and they don't are when the scoreboard really starts to pile up on them. And they're trying to force 14, 15 possessions, and they score on 2, but we get 15 possessions and we score on 10 or 11, and that's I think when things really start to snowball for us. So anyway, back to what we're talking about here. I do want to talk a little bit about the adjustment that we made to the rocket toss, and I think that's coming up here in the second or the third play on their first drive. And I mean, really, like you said yesterday, there wasn't a lot that we felt like we needed to fix here at halftime, especially offensively. I mean, it was, we marched right down there and fumbled it once, but other than that, we marched right down and punched the ball in.
Yeah. Offensively, I actually don't think we did a single thing on offense at this halftime. I do remember for one of the first times in my career, I pretty much spent the entire half in the locker room. Mainly
it was so warm.
Yeah, mainly because I had no feeling in my extremities whatsoever. The old fingers and toes, boy, I had to pull the gloves and the boots off to count them, make sure they were still there. So yeah, I pretty much hung out in the locker room. You guys will have to excuse me, by the way. My sinuses in this beautiful Indiana spring weather that we're having here are killing me right now. But yeah, I kind of hung out in the locker, talked to the coaches outside the locker room real quick, talked about adjustments that we had to make. Again, this was the season where I at this point was calling both sides of the ball here, so I just talked to the coaches about defensively some things that maybe we need to look at to just tighten up some. The rocket toss was going to be something that I was going to fix with my defensive backs. As it was, we kind of quick fixed it and put a Band-Aid over it during the game. And then obviously when we got in the locker room, wanted to make sure that everybody was 100% clear on what we were going for there. We ended up they really weren't hurting us with their inside game, which again was that was our priority. We want to stop the dive. My philosophy is these triple teams and stuff, you can't let them just run dive all over you like that. If you do, everything comes off of that. Then the quarterback, the quarterback follow, the pitch, all that stuff. You're just in trouble if you can't stop the dive. So what we end up doing here is we loosen our outside linebackers up just a tick, and then essentially we make Maxon and Brody in charge of tackling that rocket toss or forcing that rocket toss to come back inside. Previously to this, we really had kind of charged the outside backer in the corners with doing that stuff. But, again, the possibility of a halfback pass, technically like what would be a wing pass, but same concept. But the possibility of a halfback pass off of this for them to manufacture points off of a trick play, we really just couldn't do that at this point. So I made that alley safety now in charge of coming downhill. So you'll see Maxon or Brody. Maxon's already done it once. Those guys are now essentially in charge of being what we call the point man, which is he's going to be kind of the focal point of that attack and attack that ball from the outside and force it back in to the rest of the defense if possible. So we just kind of change assignments there on that a little bit. Obviously, we've got to adjust to the fact that they are pitching it way further than we thought they were going to. Like I said, it really, for a spread team, it really is like a bubble. They're getting it way out there. So just talking to the kids about that, making some adjustments there. Really not much else, honestly. We did address a little bit the fact that, hey, guys, their plan is working for them. We're not getting the ball offensively. We had the one series that we fumbled it. Again, if those are points, like we've talked about, the points point, at halftime, if we score on that drive, we were on the 7-yard line and we haven't been slowed down yet. If we score there, this is 24-7. It really is a totally different game at that point. And maybe they do have to come out of their stuff some. But, turnovers right now, all that's going to do is cost us time and points here. Normally it's one of the two. A turnover is going to cost you points, but normally not time. In a game like this, we're losing both. And that can really hurt you. So, again, I'm not sure. I think we throw one pass in the second half here. Our run game is so strong in this game, though. Anyway, we really don't have to. But the wind actually got worse after the half. I think we throw a now route to Colby in this half, and it might be the only one that we attempt. It got real bad after the half. I think when we score here coming up, and our fans are super dedicated. They are incredible. But when we go up 24-7, a lot of the people, I think, were like, okay, we're done. This is over with. Let's get back to New Pal. Let's get in the car. Let's turn the heater on and let's head home. We did not have a lot of Dragon faithful left at the end of this game here, and I don't blame them. I'd have gotten in the car with them if I could have. So, it's a good half, though. It really is. I think the one thing about this half here is, we really got on our offensive line and really challenged them to keep up the intensity they've been playing with and really carry us in this half here. And I think this is probably one of our overall, from our offensive line, one of our finer performances that we've had in my 7 years. But this half from them is just exceptionally dominant, which is what we needed. So it's a good half of football.
Really nice play by Richie Clevenger right here on this opening kickoff.
This is him as a sophomore, too.
Yep.
More young guys out there.
Yep. We'll talk a little bit about our kickoff team and stuff. And, I think some of the benefit is, these three guys that kind of have the ability to do whatever they want, they make up the vast majority of our tackles. But sometimes what happens is some of our other guys just go completely untouched as well. And that's kind of what happens to Richie here. Nobody blocks him, and let's tackle the 25-yard line on a kick that goes to maybe the 12. There's a fold play there.
Yeah, this guy, you've seen those of you that have watched this series a little bit. This is very similar to what Center Grove does with theirs. These wing fold plays and stuff. It's a kind of a staple of these flex bone or triple or wing T teams and stuff. So I think again one of the positives of this game is that while the triple takes your talent out of the equation, it really does play into our hands some because in general our kids are pretty disciplined, but also this was a really good group up front. Like our box players in 18 were really good. Running the football against us was was not easy. So I didn't mention that yesterday, but that was, I think, one of the big positives that I felt going into this game. Another dive play that kind of hits backside on us there. Just kind of bends that thing back right off that center.
Well, nice plays right out of the gate there by Tyler Horsley in here at nose.
Yeah, I know we've talked about him before, but this was a great game for Big Horse here. Being the size that he was and the scheme that we use. So, again, we're trying to two-gap these guys. We don't do that very often, but there are a couple games that we've played where we use our front three guys to two-gap people. Normally, we're a single-gap control defense. I know a lot of not a lot, but there are some stack teams that two-gap people up front, and there's a couple 3-4 teams that do the same thing. So there are a couple of games where we feel like using a two-gap defense. So what I mean by that is each one of the defensive linemen normally up front, every space between an offensive lineman is a gap. So between the center and the guard is the A gap. Between the guard and the tackle is the B gap. Outside of the tackle or between the tackle and tight end would be the C gap. So normally each one of our players is responsible for a singular gap in that system. And it makes it easy for the kids. It also makes it easy for us to diagnose where errors have come from. In this scenario, though, what we use now is what's called a two-gap principle, where you're essentially, instead of playing half a man and playing a single gap, our three guys up front are going to occupy 6 gaps with 3 people, and they're going to play a whole man. So like the nose guard. So Tyler Horsley on this play is essentially going to hit the center square in the chest, and he is going to then extend his arms, sit, and he's going to play both of the A gaps that are adjacent to him. So he's going to be able to occupy 2 gaps at one time. If you're going to do those things, 1, you've got to be good, and 2, you've got to be a lot either bigger and or stronger than your opponent. And the weight room is definitely one thing that we do really well. So for our kids, this is something that we've been able to fortunately use because of their commitment to the weight room and their strength. So you can see our defensive line, normally those guys are playing a half a gap and really scraping flat and Coach Rand works with those guys about scraping flat down the line of scrimmage and running. And now you can see they're all 3 essentially just putting their hands right in these guys' chest, holding them still, and then looking for where the ball's at. So we're buying essentially 200% of their value here by making them essentially cover 2 gaps apiece instead of 1. So that's what we're doing. That's when I say 2 gap, and that's what that means.
So 3rd and medium, and here comes the first rocket of the second half. So I know you talked about it, but let's kind of go through a little bit of the nuts and bolts of this here while we have this, and you can already kind of see Brody start to.
Yeah, so they're going to come down here and they're going to crack blockade. This one's into the boundary, which is interesting. Again, not something you would expect, just because they don't have the amount of real estate normally, obviously, that you get when you go to the field here. So Riker, again, stays pretty disciplined on this play. You can see the difference between, if you go back, the difference between Riker and Brody here. Riker has to backpedal. That's his discipline piece. He really is looking at that wing that cracks on Cade. And we know that we probably can't get Cade loose here, but we had talked about fighting across this guy's body when he cracks down on you. So as soon as he sees the crack, you can see him start to try to fight across, but he ends up getting double teamed on this, which makes it even harder, and it's just not going to happen. So we lose him. Riker does a good job of backpedaling first to check for anybody releasing down the field. Brody, though, is an immediate point man. You can tell he is downhill right now, and he is going to attack, if he can, the outside shoulder of this play and turn this back into where all of our players should be coming from. And we do a pretty solid job here, really, for not practicing this. We get it bottled up okay. It's not an easy play to adjust to. You don't want to give up trickery on it, all those things that are kind of going through your head here. But, better is better for sure than what we, outside of the one, than what we had been doing. I mean, here's your outside veer right here. Kyle does a really nice job of realizing what this block is and just literally beating this kid right to the outside on this veer. He ends up taking up 2 blockers on this play, which frees up other people.
Yeah, Luke Ely squirts right through there from linebacker. Makes a nice play.
Yep.
Crisscross.
Oh God, this is that little wing fold. They're like wing ISO play. Pendleton and Delta used to be run and shoot, and they would run these flex bone sets. Not the tight flex bone as often as what you're seeing right now, but Pendleton and Delta used to do this when I got up here in our conference. And I'm going to tell you what, Pendleton ran this particular type play. They ran like a little pony motion with that guy, and they ran essentially a crisscross dive or crisscross like wing ISO. And I'm going to tell you what, it was really good. And this play can be tough to deal with because you look like you've got 2 guys coming through on a dive, and you don't know, who's got or who's doing what. And really what they want you to do is either incorrectly tackle one of them or get blocked by him. And then the real dive back comes through third. And, boy, you're in a lot of trouble if you don't diagnose this play quickly. So you got the ISO, you've got a fake dive, then the wing comes through on an ISO, which really is the dive they're going for. So the third ball carrier is getting the ball. Two dummies essentially have come through. And again, our guys have been trained to tackle the dive, tackle the dive, tackle the dive. Well, it looks like 2 dives go right down the middle of the defense here, and they're blocking you and then trying to get you to tackle one of them, and then they're giving the ball to the third kid. So you usually don't have anybody left to tackle them. It's a good play.
There are a lot of things that the gentleman in the 20 jersey, Maxon Hook, is really good at. He's a great player. Don't get me wrong. But his ability on this play to see this immediately and hard fill to the correct spot and be the first guy there at about 4 yards is remarkable.
Yeah, the good part about how we played this is he was reading the wings. So sometimes they're going to lie and sometimes they're not, but most of the time they're not going to in this setting. And he does a great – again, it's about discipline, and he's a super disciplined player. but yeah, to figure this out that quickly with his key read and have the discipline to follow it up, this is a great play. It's really one of the plays for years that we worked on a lot when we used to go against those run and shoot teams and stuff. It was something that we practiced a tremendous amount because it really does. It just, for teams that are disciplined, it takes up all of your answers and you're kind of left holding the bag a little bit. if you do your job, that third guy through he's really unaccounted for.
Back to kind of just regular ISO here.
Yeah, third and short.
Here's the old Maryland eye again.
Yep. I'm telling you, don't see it very often. When Chatard did this to us 5 years prior to what this one was, they normally were in double tights with Maryland eye. I mean, it was imposing.
I'm gonna tell you, here's just a little bit of old school football right here. My big fullback, our big strong linebacker, ISO block. Somebody wins, somebody loses. That kid's a really good player.
Yeah, there's some beauty in that.
QB follow.
It's another hard play to stop. Conceptually, it's the same thing that we just talked about a second ago. What they're trying to do is make you tackle the dive, and then your guy that's responsible for the dive is disciplined enough that he's done his job, and now the quarterback essentially follows the dive where you would not have somebody there, because normally the quarterback runs a wide course and you've got a guy for him there. You don't have someone for the quarterback normally inside of the box. So he literally just follows the dive course, and conceptually he should be a free player to run because he's going into a vacated area.
ISO again on 3rd and 3.
Yeah, this is just straight up ISO here. Here's the crazy part about this too. We're not playing bad football. I mean, they're just getting their 3 yards a pop, and we've got to prevent them from that. But it's a lot easier said than done. We're not playing poorly. We're doing pretty well on defense right now. They're just executing their offense really well. I mean, this is what they wanted.
Wing fold.
Yeah. More importantly for them, every first down they get is 2 minutes off the clock. And they've now gotten 3 of them. This is a good play for us. This is what you need. Winning first down is critical against teams like this. Winning first down is huge. Because 2nd and 9, 2nd and 10, that's not what they want to be in. They're usually okay with 2nd and 8. But if you can get them in a negative play or an even play on first down, the advantage goes in a major way in your favor. So that was a big win. That was really one of the first times that we had kept them to negative to 0 on a first down. That's a big deal for us.
We've talked a lot about how cold it is. I think this is the first example of how cold it actually is. Watch this kid right here. I mean, you can really see his breath come out right there. It is really, really cold. There's kind of crisscross again.
I'm cold just thinking about it. We get a penalty on this play too, which –
Yep. That's a drive killer for them.
Yeah, that's another one of the hard things about when you play offenses like this. I know I've talked about the offensive pass interference type stuff, but here's another part about these offenses that I think a lot of people really underestimate. And let's be honest, I played offensive line too, and if you're a good offensive line coach, you teach your guys how to legally hold people. I mean, that's just part of the position, you know. But these teams, these triple teams, wing T teams, etc., they make a living on holding and illegal blocks and all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, you get held more against these quote unquote old school offenses more than you ever do against spread. And really, I think part of the beauty of that is how much you actually going to call it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't call it every time. As an official, you might see it, but there comes a point where you start making decisions based on, well, how egregious was that one? Well, that was pretty bad. Okay. Well, that one wasn't so bad. I'll let that one slide. I mean, you get held, grabbed, high load, illegally cut, all kinds of stuff against these offenses more than any offense you're going to play against. And it really, and I guarantee it's kind of part of the philosophy. Like, look, guys, they're not going to call holding enough to hurt our offense. So do it. Go ahead and do it. And it really is difficult here because there's so many bodies in such a small space that the officials aren't going to catch all of them anyway, and they're not going to call a lot of them because you can't just sit there and call a hold every 2 to 3 plays. It does make it hard, but we get a pretty egregious one there, which puts them way behind the chains, and now we're big time in a scenario that favors our defense here, and we're going to really make them pay for this.
There's 2 things I want to talk about here, and I mean, you're a coordinator. I've been a coordinator previously, and you're in second and a mile here, and I certainly don't want to be critical of the Harrison guys. We know those guys really well, but I think we almost get a little too cute here because we show this. When I say we, I mean they, because they show the rocket again, and they get us to take the cheese. Right, here we come. This is rocket 100% until it's not, and they literally blow right by us.
Yeah,
I mean, absolutely dust us, and we're hosed. This is, if he can throw it that far, which debatable, but if he can throw it that far, that's 6 points. But what we actually do is fake all that to come back here and throw a wing leak. This is actually the B-back. It's a fullback leak screen. It's him. And like I said, I mean, coaching's not easy. I'm not trying to say that it is. I'm not trying to say this is dumb necessarily, but I think in hindsight, had they just gone to this, they'd have had something. Now, that's the first thing I want to talk about. The second thing I'd like you to talk about is somebody we haven't talked about in the series who does a lot of different things for us and gets a really nice sack. Here's David Spiegel.
Yeah. So,
I mean, with a bull rush on a dude twice his size, twice his height, not twice his height, but he's a heck of a lot taller than him. But he's probably twice his weight.
Oh yeah, he gets right up under this guy. I mean, that guy was like 280 something pounds or whatever, and David weighs like $180. So yeah, part of this plan in this game was, Tyler was a big boy, and big guys get tired. So some of that was on a long drive like that. We felt like maybe Tyler wasn't remaining as effective. Also, when we got him in a passing scenario, we wanted speed on the field here. And I think to your comment, if they had seen more of what we had adjusted to by making Brody hard charge this play, they probably do go to this guy at the bottom of the screen here. But we really had only hard charged once. There was really no way for them to probably tell that was what we were going to be doing the entire remainder of the night. Riker actually makes a huge mistake here, and thankfully we don't pay for it. This is a big mistake by him because he's got no over-the-top help here. But, the screen call is not bad just because in general we're a super aggressive defense and people do try to screen us a lot. But in this game we haven't been. So it's probably not as great of a call as maybe their plan had thought because we're not blitzing them. So, but anyway, with David, we wanted to rotate him in this game some anyway and give them actually something I've talked about on here. The difference between a big 6'2", 300-pounder and David, who's like 5'8", 185 and really quick. That's a really hard thing for a center to handle, especially if David slants or moves at all. It really makes his job difficult, having to continuously kind of readjust your body to what is in front of you and the approach. It's not easy for centers to do. So in passing scenarios, we also wanted David in the game because he is faster. He's more explosive. He can put pressure on the quarterback quicker. And he's done this for us a lot throughout his time here, playing nose guard, and occasionally he's played linebacker. And he's done a really great job, especially from the nose guard position, of being so quick through the gaps that linemen have struggled to block him. And this is a great example of him, one, just being a really strong and physically intense kid. He's only a sophomore in this film right here. But just being a really explosive kid, getting under this big guy's pads before he can even – again, the guy's been blocking Tyler most of the night. And Tyler's a little bit slower off the ball, but probably has a little bit more power to his initial pop because he's got so much weight behind him. And Tyler was an incredibly strong kid as well. Horsley was I think 345 or something pound bench presser, a mid 500s or something like that on a squat. He was powerful, 315 or something pound power clean. So Tyler was a big, strong kid. But that hit feels different than what a kid like David provides when David can explode and fire his hands in your chest before you. I mean, that kid's hand is still between his legs, and David got his hands on his chest, so it's different. But he does a great job here of engaging, getting this kid off balance, shedding the block, and then putting some pressure on from nose guard and getting a huge sack here. Now, this is also made by Kyle being really disciplined over there with I think that's CJ over there on that side. Those guys being really disciplined and not, kind of like you said at the Riker a little bit here kind of takes the cheese, but those guys don't. And you can see CJ sifts out wide, and Kyle then kind of stands there and takes up this gap that 72 is now going to occupy. And I mean, CJ really is what makes this play. But Kyle's length and body in that window, along with, CJ just doing an exceptional job. I mean, there's a lot of guys that do a good job on this play. There's a couple that do a bad job on this play. But for what they're trying to do, we get, thankfully, the kids doing the right thing at the right time are where they're trying to put the football. And a really good play by CJ and David and Kyle here. It's a great job.
So this is, probably 3rd and 28, which is not what anybody wants to be in, but it's certainly not what Flexbone wants to be in.
They make another critical error here. Yeah, this is the one where they don't block Kyle.
Would not recommend.
Yeah, not a great choice. It's a mistake, obviously, by them. It's a total bust. They fan their protection out to the left, and they've just got a miscommunication here, obviously, is what happens, because no communication would ever say to let Kyle loose. That doesn't make any sense. So, that's pretty standard. So they just have a bad miscommunication here, and they essentially just cut Kyle totally loose, and he makes the play that he should make when that happens.
I've said this a couple times, and I think you have too, and I think that's something that the average fan or parent forgets in the game on a Friday night. These are 16, 17-year-old kids.
That kids make mistakes. Yeah,
they're gonna screw up, and
so do coaches. But
kids are gonna make mistakes, and
yep.
It happens, and that's part of the deal. And the fewer mistakes you make, the more games you win.
I'm sure all the boo boys up in the stands there, that are sitting there like, oh, how stupid can you be as a coach? It's like, I'm going to go ahead and put my career on the line and say that none of Coach Peebles' pass protections in this game were drawn up to cut Kyle King loose and not block him. I'm gonna guess that, and people are like, oh my God, what kind of, how can you? It's like, yeah. I'm sure I'm sure that his diagram for that protection was to let number 54 loose, guys. We'll be fine. We'll juke him in the backfield. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. Kids make mistakes. It happens. We all deal with it as high school coaches. You just show them, play the next play, coach them up,
Yep.
and try to make a correction.
I think that's, I don't want to go on a rant here or a diatribe or, whatever, but I think that's one of the most frustrating things is the standard that some people hold these kids to. Like, they expect them to execute like NFL kids, and they're just not going to do that. They're going to screw up. NFL guys screw up too. It's not, it's not like they're perfect, but this is a lot of coaching is about managing through the mistakes and trying to minimize the mistakes, because you're never going to play perfect.
No, as a wise sage once said, everybody's an expert.
That's right. So on the bright side, mini rant over. They've probably chewed 7-8 minutes of clock here.
That's the hard part too about, you think like, oh man, this is killer. They got them in third and 30, but they're still snapping the ball with 1 second on the clock. I mean, that particular series of plays there, especially with the hold, because they get to run another play, has still taken over 2 minutes off of the clock for that just that one set of chains. You're looking at a 6, 7, 8 minute drive here.
Really good punt.
Yeah, that kid was really good.
I
don't know what happened with those kids, but yeah, their punter kicker. I'm not sure where but they were. I want to say the kicker ended up becoming, or the punter. I can't remember which one. Maybe it was both at some point. We're both first team All-State players. The punter, I want to say, because I think I was on that panel. God, he had averaged like over 40-something yards a punt. He was incredible.
This one is 52. And we're kind of getting into that situation. We've talked about, kind of our philosophy about not taking chances. We're kind of getting close to that situation in the game based on score and time of we're just going to get away from it and we don't really care what happens.
We saw what happened in the last one before the half, where he literally
right.
had to almost break his back in half to catch it because the ball was
right.
swirling. But that's also, if let's say that the wind blows this, the last second, it hits his shoulder pads and he muffs this punt and they get it, we're not going to touch the ball in the third quarter. And right now, like you just said, the most important thing right now is that we get the ball. And the only way to ensure that we get the ball is that we let this ball die. Let it roll. Because if we muff this punt, we're not getting the ball in the third quarter. And we're still only up by 10. And if they score, we're only up by 3. And that's not where we want to be at. So the number one thing here is get our offense back on the field at any cost. And the best way to do that is to completely take the mistakes out of the equation and just let this ball hit the ground and roll.
Yeah, the other thing too is that this particular one's probably not a real easy one to field, because if I remember right, I think we told him, because the wind is doing this. And I think we told him with the wind to play him at 40 yards. And this punt goes about 33, 34. So he's going to have to charge this, which is not easy either. No. So a lot of factors that go into this, and I mean, again, same thing we just talked about. We're kind of, hindsight being 50-50, as my dad used to say. If this thing bounces at 29 and goes 8 yards that way, we've made a great decision. But the ball bounces at 29 and goes 16 yards this way, and we look like idiots because we didn't catch the punt. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's just how it goes.
Yeah. More importantly than any of that, though, our offense is about to come on the field, which is all that matters anyway.
Yep. Would I like to have it at the 32 instead of the 9 or the 8? Yes, I would. But I would not like to take the risk that comes with trying to get it at the 32. So right to quarterback zone here out of the gate, and we get another real good one.
Yep. The other part of that equation that you just talked about there too is they haven't shown that they can slow our offense down at all. So 15 yards of field position, it really is inconsequential in the big picture. It doesn't matter. Like I know we've watched, but like in that Valpo game, I did want to catch those punts because 15 yards of field position against them, it was not coming very easily. This game, we really have not even been slowed to this point. So we're actually going to get those 15 yards back in 2 plays here. I mean, it really is, it's not a pressing issue.
This is outside zone, and Noah, our left guard, kind of gets stood up here a little bit. Chuck makes a nice cut here into the A gap.
Yeah, that's a great cut. Another quarterback outside zone. Zach cuts this one up pretty tight here.
Third and about 4. You go quarterback zone the other way. Boy, and Chuck just takes that dude for a ride.
Yeah, that's the one where he throws him into the ground on the sideline. It's an incredible block by him here. I know the one game I was a little bit critical of a block he didn't make. I think it was in the run game. It was the Michigan City game. I was critical of him, and we spend a lot of time. I coach the running backs. We spend a lot of time with those guys blocking, and you wouldn't think they'll coach their ball carriers. No, they're not. They're running backs, and running backs are required to block, and we spend a ton of time. Usually, our Tuesdays are going to include some run blocking stuff, and then Wednesday is going to be and some pass blocking. And Wednesday is going to be our really tightening up the pass game stuff with some pass blocking drills and whatnot. So we spend a lot of time on that stuff, and I expect those guys to block and give their full effort because the offensive line in front of them, having played the position, that's their job. Their job is to block, and they don't get to score touchdowns. So those running backs, when I work with those guys, it's important because you're not a ball carrier, you're a running back, and you're going to be a complete running back or you're not going to play. So I was really, especially with as big and as physical as Charlie was, I was really hard on him about, his blocking. And it isn't that he didn't – it isn't – I say that. It's not that he refused to block or didn't want to block, but he really could essentially be like an extra offensive lineman or tight end out there. I mean, he was that powerful and that strong and that big. I mean, he's 225 pounds. There's some teams that's the size of your guard or a tackle. So, except for Charlie runs, like a 4.6. So it's such a great weapon to have someone like him who's so physical and so fast and explosive when he uses that ability as a tremendous blocker, which most of the time is exactly what he's going to do. God, is that ever demoralizing too, by the way? I mean, come out there and our running back just railroads you into the sideline. Holy Moses. So that was a pancake block by him, and that's what it should be. That's what he should do to just about everybody. He was a great blocker too.
Yep.
I mean, when he really sunk it and settled in, boy, he could really get after you. That is one of the most undervalued parts about his game is his, everyone sees the touchdowns and the yards and the things that he does with the ball in his hands. But what made him and what made our team so special is what he did without the ball in his hands. That's what makes you a running back and not a ball carrier. And he was really good at that stuff and really unselfish about it too. We haven't really said this, but I talked to a buddy of mine yesterday from Cincinnati, and he's got a really, really high-level kid that is insanely impressive. That's a tailback and a outside linebacker hybrid kid for them. And I was asking some questions about him and stuff, and he was just saying how nice it is because the kid is as humble and as hardworking as you could imagine. And I said, yeah, believe me, man, I value that because that's what my guy was. You know, all the things that Charlie had accomplished, his humbleness and just general hardworkiness to do whatever it took to win for the team was really what made him great. And I know you can't put that on a recruiting paper and evaluate that, but to me, that's what made him so special.
Yeah, I think and if you really sit down and you watch his highlight tape, I think it's impossible to watch him be a power back and truck guys, and him be a speed back and jump cut and juke guys and make guys miss at the second and the third level. And he's a great blocker, and he's really good catching the ball out of the backfield.
I was going to say, and he catches the ball extremely well.
And to me, it's impossible to watch that tape and not come to the conclusion that he's just a complete back.
Yeah.
So, we haven't. That needed to be said. I think you're right. We really haven't talked about how good he is in the big picture of, other than let's lay the ball down on inside zone and see Chuck run, basically. You know what I mean?
And then look at the wake of destruction left in his path. Yeah.
See Chuck run, have the pet band start to stand up and get ready.
Though I enjoyed all of that immensely. Yeah.
So you talked about this throw and another thing that we've talked about briefly, but this is really some inside the headset stuff. This is some kid feedback here from Colby.
Yeah, so we actually RPO this. This is the only halftime adjustment that we really had discussed offensively. And we hadn't practiced this. It's really simple. I mean, this is not hard to do. And we had done some stuff like this throughout the year anyway. So this is just a really simple. It's actually on my RPO clinic. It's just a really simple RPO here on a now route. Colby had said, Coach, with much more running the ball, they're not defending me in the slot from this formation. I said, oh, okay. Talked to Zach about it. He said, yeah, he's just kind of out there. Colby's just kind of out there in no man's land. And so I said, all right, can we do this? And essentially all this is really two of the easiest plays that we have, because again, we didn't practice it. I'm not going to do something extreme that we hadn't practiced. So this is simple. It's just inside zone mixed with a now route, and Zach just reads, instead of reading the defensive end here, Cade's going to block him, and Zach's going to read 22 on the outside there.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll just RPO this off a second-level player, and if that guy is inside Colby and 32, crashes in. Now, Colby should widen this. He doesn't widen it, and he catches it, and he hesitates a little bit. If he would have widened just a tad or caught this ball and gone out to the numbers like he really should have.
Almost like a short bubble.
Yeah, if he'd have done that, this would have been a great play. We still get yards off of it. It's still fine, but this is probably the only thing that we had, technically speaking, I guess, adjusted to at the half. I actually think that's the only pass that we throw. Maybe there's one more coming up. That's it, boys. That's third quarter, by the way.
Yeah, we were in 4 plays.
I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable.
Well, there goes that man again.
Yeah, I mean, these are the things that we're talking about that we really just discussed. You watch what happens here. The offensive line does a nice job. They get some good push. They give him a seam. We're running our ISO play. It's a little bit messy. Charlie gets hit at 3 and drags them for another 7 to 8. I mean, here's the thing about this, though, that I thought in this game, and I talked to him obviously when he comes to the sidelines briefly in between stuff to see if there's anything that he would see or anything that he thought about why something was or wasn't working, whatever. And he always had great feedback on that stuff. I mean, he really understood the game, which was also great. He's not just talented. He understood what was going on around him, but he loved a game like this. Like, this was like his kind of a game. It's cold, it's windy. You're going to have to run the ball. They're loading the box up. I know this was one of the things that I've told this story to a lot of people, and you've enjoyed this story as well. But we were playing a particular team in this season, and I think Charlie had just scored like his 7th touchdown of the half, 6th touchdown of the half, something like that. It was a bunch. He came over and I patted him on the helmet and I said, "Hey man, good job, keep it up. We're obviously going to pull you guys at halftime, so you've got one more series, probably something like that, whatever." And he just kind of was standing there like a mannequin, like emotionless. And I said, "What's the matter, man?" I said, You just scored, your whatever it was, your 5th, 6th touchdown. I don't know. I said, "You're not happy about that?" And he goes, "Coach, I'm not. This isn't even fun." I said, "What do you mean?" I said, because again, I played offensive line. Like I think I scored 1 touchdown in my career, and it was on Y pop in the 6th grade because I was the tallest kid, and they made me play tight end for Y pop. And they would just throw the ball at my face as hard as they could. And I think I caught – it was either a touchdown or 2-point conversion, but let's just say it was a touchdown for my own personal career accolades. It was a touchdown. So I go, "Man, what are you talking about?" I said, you got 5, 6 touchdowns. And he goes, "They're not even trying to hit me. They're not even trying to tackle me. Like, nobody will hit me." He said, "That kid just ran away from me." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said, "They're not even trying to hit me. They're just running next to me or they run away from me." He said, "This isn't fun at all." And I'm like, "Well, here's the deal, bud. You run into them then." And I said, "And don't slow down, because if you slow down at all and go 80% because you're not expecting to get hit and all of a sudden one of them does hit you, that's how you get hurt. So you go full speed like you always do, and then just run at them. That's their problem, And he kind of smiled and laughed, and he just said, "Yes, sir." And sure enough, man, the next drive we get the ball, and he breaks loose again, and he starts swerving and turning at the defenders to essentially make them hit him. It almost looked like that scene out of Little Giants, where Spike the tailback is running at the little kid, and the little kid swerving around, and Spike's just running at him to try to truck him or whatever. I mean, it looked like that, and I mean, he lives for football, and that was to see our offensive line and him kind of take this game over when the weather sucked so bad. Like I said, this was a game that was built for a kid like him. He loves this. I'm going to use the weight room, the hard work I've put in to earn hard yards, and it's pretty fun to see, but it's kind of a funny story, kind of how he's wired, which is different than I think a lot of running backs are, honestly.
Well, I'll tell you what, Blake Austin really does a good job on this. Cade does too, coming down and cracking. He's able to get in here and get this guy cracked, but Blake's block on the perimeter really makes this just regular old outside zone here.
Our wideouts do a great job blocking, that's for sure. It's a good run here too. Really nice job by the guys up front. Great pickup here from the left guard and left tackle. Good blocking on the perimeter. Just all around a really good play. It was a really nice play. I mean, super well executed. It's a great combo between Jacob and Noah on the left side. They actually both get through that kind of 4-eye kind of look, and that is just a really good, clean combo block here. Great, you're right, though. Great job by Cade to come in here and have the effort to pick this crack up. Really, it's not even a crack. He ends up squaring him up. He does such a great job.
I'll give Coach Buchanan another little shout out here with I'll appropriately pause the video where we've got 4 little linemen and a tight end. And everybody reached and Kyle's cut this guy down your backside. And I mean, that's as good as you can hope for right there. I mean, you've got everything pinned inside the hash and you're running outside zone. That's what you want. And then you get your X receiver to pancake this dude into the orange.
He won't like the fact that wide receiver was the only pancake block on that play, though.
That is correct. What can I say, man? Hey, I'm just coaching dudes out here. That's all that is.
Yep. Wide receiver pancakes.
So back down to red zone here.
Really good run. Another great job by our guys up front. I mean, really just a tremendous hole here created by the left side. Austin and Cotterman get a really nice push in the middle. I mean, we have essentially reestablished the offensive line at 4 yards, or the line of scrimmage at 4 yards here. You can do that, especially as an inside zone team. You're going to win a lot of ball games. Charlie does a good job of getting up into the wall here, getting up into the butts of the offensive line and then making a really nice smooth cut off of these guys. It's just a really good play again. Really, really well done.
Not so good by our X receiver on that one, if I'm honest.
No, not as good there.
So 24-7, with 11 minutes to go, and this is kind of, I thought as this drive started, I felt like we're probably going to win the game, whether we score or we don't, just because of how much time is left.
Right.
Now is when I start going, you know what? Listen, they've got to score 3 times, and they would need 35 minutes of game clock to do that.
Yeah, at the pace.
At the pace they're going.
I'm more so thinking here, are the hand warmers in my boots still working or not? I don't think so. I don't think they are. I think they've tapped out.
A pretty nice job there again. Somehow that guy always finds his way through there cleanly. That's the beauty of the scheme. Kind of misses an arm tackle there, and then we gang tackle him. Avon, Colby. There's kind of what you're talking about with Maxon.
Yep.
Coming up to chase it and set the edge on that rocket, and CJ and Kyle do a really nice job.
Now this one they don't crack because they're spread now, so we don't get the quote unquote crack we've been getting. That wing tries to arc release to us, which our speed can take care of that. The crack block is what had been killing us because we can't widen out too far. They're going to run outside veer right down your throat. So this is a different look for them. They go unbalanced out here with the receivers. So the slot actually gets up on the line of scrimmage, which allows this wing to then orbit around. But this is a different look, and it's actually better for us because on top of the fact that they can't – well, they could, but they're not going to crack block us here. The other bonus is that Maxon doesn't have to worry about covering that receiver that's in front of him because he can't go catch the ball and go downfield. So he can actually get downhill pretty aggressively here. So this particular version of it really works in our favor, honestly. Here's your triple.
Your veer triple. Yep.
We got nobody for the pitch on this one. This is a nightmare here. This is what I was talking about, though. If you go back and watch the film, how many times in this particular night did we not cover the pitch man? 0. None. We have had him every time. The one time you don't get it done, they make you pay for it. Everybody else has their guy, and Brody bites way too far on this dive. And we've got nobody left for the pitch. And they kill us with it. This is the thing. Have we made a mistake to this point? No. Have we played really good football to this point? Yes. Here's an example. All the things line up for them, and we make a mistake, and they make us pay. It is one of the painful things about the triple option stuff is you can play a really great, clean game, and you screw up once, and it can be a backbreaker. Thankfully, it doesn't kill us, but it's just an example of what makes this offense so hard to deal with. We've played 3 really strong quarters so far, and we make one mistake, and they get 20-something yards. Now we're at least over there.
Yeah, Cade does a really nice job on this one.
Truthfully, when we play triple teams, some people's philosophy might be different than ours, and that's okay. Everyone coaches football differently, but I want them to pitch the ball. There are a lot of things that happen in that chain of events that can go wrong, and I want them to pitch it. So it also means you get a chance to potentially hit their quarterback a lot if he's getting to the pitch phase. So we want to stop the dive. We want you to pitch. There's a lot that can go wrong in that disengage and pitch phase. So we kind of have them where we want them. We just got to get to the pitch better.
That little pony motion crisscross again.
Yeah, and they're still running one play every century here, so they're eating clock up. They did move a little bit faster on this drive, though. See, every time you hand the ball off, every time you do something different, there's a chance for a mistake, and this is one of them here. They go they go triple to the left, but there's a reverse from that slot, and they muff the reverse. Every little bit and piece that they have to do to operate that's not just open up and hand a dive off is a chance for them to make a mistake. This ball, by the way, it had a life of its own. That thing took off for the sideline like a NASCAR. I thought we were going to recover this thing, and it just –
yeah, he kicked it.
Going and going and going and going and going.
He drops this thing, and he kicks it with his left foot.
Yeah, and it just took off.
So we get him at about 2nd and 19.
Would have been a nice reward for Cade. He's played a good game. Would have been a nice reward.
Mm-hmm.
A little scoop and score possibly there.
Little hitch down here to try to get some of it back. Oh, this is the fumble.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Just ball's out. Yeah. Oh, my God. I don't.
And I remember the argument about this.
They had no argument. The whistle hadn't blown.
The whistle hadn't blown, and it wasn't, and the argument wasn't that he was in the grasp. I might listen to that. At this point, if you want to blow this dead and say, look, he's in the grasp, fine, we're done. But that's not what happened.
No.
What he said was that he was actually on the ground.
Well, one of them actually came over to me and said he didn't fumble the ball. I said, what are you talking about? And he said there wasn't a fumble on the play. I said, my guys have the ball in their hands. The ball's on the ground. If he didn't fumble it, how's my guy have it? I took it from him when the play was over. No, they didn't. The play wasn't even over with, and the ball's on the turf. My guys recovered it. Then they tackled the ball carrier, and then you guys blew it dead. The ball is 3 yards behind him in my guy's hands. It was inexplainable. Didn't make any sense.
Not going very well up here for the two hosts of Inside the Headset.
Yeah, I was exceptionally displeased with this call, and I'd already been warned once because of the PAT field goal fiasco. So I really had to just kind of shut my mouth and bite the bullet here, which sometimes you have to do as a head coach, because I certainly do not want to be ejected from a game ever, because it's a bad look on the program and the community. But when you're in the playoffs, that would mean I would miss the semi-state game as well. So I just had to take that one on the chin.
Just slant here. Same slant concept we run. Slant arrow.
That truthfully may have been one of the worst calls we've ever gotten, by the way.
Yeah, it's not good. So hit us on a slant here on third and 8.
Yeah. It's just Avon just doesn't get out in the window fast enough and doesn't get his head turned. They hit it right in the window that we're leaving for him, honestly. That's kind of the hole that we're giving him there. There's the rocket toss again. Good job bottling it up, turning it back inside. They only get about 3.
So wrinkle off that, kind of the fake rocket. I'm going to lay lay an ISO down here for that wing fold play, whatever you choose to call it. Yeah, we got all kind of mess there to try to run basically waggle.
Yeah. Good play by Maxon. We actually change it up on this play. We've been playing cover 4 a lot in this game. We actually change it up, and I think this one we end up deciding to go play man-to-man on these guys, figuring they're going to throw the ball here, and Maxon ends up chasing his guy all the way across the formation on this waggle and makes a great play on it. We got them all covered, too, and everyone does a nice job here.
So 4th and 5.
Great play by Cade. This is Cade that bats this down.
Mm-hmm.
He does a good job of collisioning that guy, and Avon really should be getting over there to that ball. So Cade, you're probably thinking, like, why would your guy release that? Avon's supposed to go over there and cover that, and he's too slow to get to it. It's really his job. Cade does a good job of rerouting and then really saves us here with a great play. He really played a great game here. This was him as a junior.
So 24-7, gosh, there's probably, I don't know, 6 minutes, maybe.
That's about right.
Outside zone.
Really, this is another – that's another clinic quality cut up right there. Great blocking. Good job by the wings. Charlie gets downhill and hits this thing vertical. Good stretch. Another thing, too, about him, everyone thinks, it's just a power back thing, but, God, he was a great outside zone runner. I think that's really what – if you've got a back that can run outside zone well and run it properly, man, oh, man, does that add a lot of value to your offense. And he was a good one. Good job.
Cade does a really good job collecting this edge blitzer here.
Yep.
Blake thought about it. He pressures, and now Blake's going to go climb and get this corner.
Great job by Jacob and Noah again, too. Austin does a good job in the middle. It's just a good play.
Well, and we've talked about this several times.
Same play.
Same play. You're going to let us run for 30 yards. We're going to go right back to it. And same result.
It almost looks like a carbon copy of the previous one.
Mm-hmm. They do the same thing. We block it the same way, and we get another 20 yards.
Actually, I think this touchdown.
Holding penalty on that one.
This touchdown that Charlie ends up scoring on this drive was the record breaker.
Yep. We didn't know it, if I remember right.
Yeah, I did not know it. The people in the booth relayed it to our guys, and then our guys relayed it down to me. And then I told him congratulations when he came to the sideline. But I know we've said this a little bit, but again, one of the coolest parts about that was he came walking over the sideline just like any other touchdown. Like he took the ball, handed it to the official, flipped it to the official. His lineman patted him on the helmet. He ran over the sideline, and we patted him on the helmet and the butt. And then, about a minute later, one of the guys in the booth was like, "Hey, that was it. By the way, that was the state record for rushing touchdowns in a season." And I'm like, "Oh, I better go say something to him." I think it was
64, right?
Something, yeah. He ended up with 68 rushing touchdowns. This one, I think, was –
or no, 61 was a record, so this was 62.
Yeah, whatever it was. It was a lot. It was a bunch.
But I'm going to tell you what, that's a nice little exclamation point drive right there. I mean, that's 5 outside zone calls right down to the 2-yard line, double tight inside zone, ram it in there.
Well, again, after they take 6 minutes or so off the clock and march the ball down the field, and we get it back, like you said, we get it back inside of our own red zone, and 5 plays later we're in the paint. I know it's the game is it's 17 points, but there's still a lot of time on the clock. Crazier things have happened here. That drive right there was a demoralizer. You're down 3 possessions now, and you really haven't proven that you can open things up and score rapidly. That one right there was pretty much it.
Well, this is technically the right call here, but I was really sad. That ball's in.
Yeah, that is in the end zone, and it hasn't been touched.
But had it not be, I mean, we're going to tackle that dude at the 3-yard line.
Yeah.
We got Luke and Maxon just right there.
This one's going to be inside the 5. I was a little bit surprised they came out and still were kind of burning clock with some of this, but they had gotten us on the pitch the last drive a couple of times. You may as well go back to it and try to chunk some on us here, but I was a little bit surprised that they didn't, open it up just a little bit. But again, their best play of this half had been the triple option pitch phase, and they pretty much just get themselves right back to that here.
That's who makes this tackle.
Yeah. When your best players give the best effort on the team, it really makes you pretty special. They don't just sit there and rely on their talent to take care of things for them. They play as hard as anybody else or harder. Kyle had to grow up in that, though. It isn't like he was,
Mm-hmm.
He had to learn that. And that's a great thing, too. We talked about this yesterday. Austin Keel was the alpha for that offensive line group for a couple of years, honestly. And ended up going to play D2 ball here at UIndy on full scholarship. And, just a tremendous, tremendous player, 3-time first-team All-State kid, IHSAA top 50 player, the whole 9 yards. And that was, again, one of those really cool things. Kyle maybe a little bit more, genetically, physically gifted, et cetera. I mean, Kyle's 6'4" and has a huge frame, the whole 9 yards. Austin was, about 6'1" and a half-ish, and didn't quite have the frame, but was an exceptional player. And Austin took Kyle under his wing, and Kyle learned a lot from Austin, despite the fact that, Austin goes to UIndy and then Kyle goes to Michigan State. The Michigan State recruit and Big Ten kid understood that he had a lot to learn from a veteran and an older guy that had done it since he was a freshman and had been an incredible player for us. And, I think Kyle learned a tremendous amount. The respect, like I said, that our players respect and hard work. The fact that maybe a more talented but a younger player understood where his role was in the pecking order, and that he had a lot to learn from a veteran who'd seen and experienced so much, and followed Austin's leadership and learned from that, is really what makes our team incredible to me. That the kids understand that there is kind of an unspoken, I guess, hierarchy here is a good word for it. And if I work hard and pay my dues, and I'm willing to accept my position in that as potentially a role player or whatever, and I want to be a future leader and climb that ladder, I've got a lot of things that I can learn from these guys that do things the right way. And I think that's really what's made our program so consistent, so great over the years, is our kids understand that. They're not egomaniacs. They're not jerks. It's not about them. It's about the team and how I can make the team the best it can be. And a big part of that is learning from those legendary guys that are around you. And Austin was certainly one of them. And I would argue that Kyle became the player he was in partly because of Austin.
Oh, I'd agree with that 100%. Yeah, that's a really, really good point.
Blake probably became part of who he was because of Colby. Colby became part of who he was because of Duke. Duke became what he was because of Tyler Walden. There's a chain that you can trace that stuff back to, which is really neat.
Boy, I do not love this spot, honestly.
I'm not a big fan of a lot of stuff from this game. Let's go to the next play. Man, we got some terrible spots this night too. This was not a great night.
So we intercept it, and that's going to do it. We need one first down to run the clock out here. And you may be surprised to see that we run outside zone. And Chuck carries 4 dudes for about 8 yards.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think this was it. One first down, then we take a knee on it. I'm pretty sure it was only one that we needed. We get it in like 2 or 3 plays here. 2 plays, I think it is. And that's it. I'm pretty sure maybe it was 2 first downs. Whatever it is, the math is being done, and there we go.
It is.
Okay. 3 plays. So that was technically our 7th possession of the game, was a 2-play, 3-play, and take a knee. And the one was that short field from the first half. So not a lot of opportunity, but like we talked about, really efficient in that game overall, especially considering the circumstances with the wind and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Really a pretty good game for us.
Yeah, I mean, that's you talked about a little bit. I mean, that's playoff football in Indiana. Look, either you can run the ball or you can't. And if you can't in November, you're probably not going to win.
No.
And I don't know how far down this road I want to go, but I think there are a lot. There's not a lot. There's several air raid teams in Indiana. I mean, true air raid. Mike Leach. They're going to run mesh. They're going to run white cross. They're going to throw it 50 plus.
Or it's at least a big part of what they do in the passing.
Right. Right. And, even some of the teams that do that stuff really, really well, you kind of see them start to sputter out as the playoffs go on and the weather gets bad. And, I mean, that's the risk you run. I mean, that's, that coming in and we're both really good friends with the Newcastle guys, and Kyle York is the head coach over there. And, he's put the empty air raid in over there, and it's really caused us some problems over the years with some of the personnel he's had. But, for example, they show up at our place in 2019 and it's 40 degrees.
It's a monsoon.
Raining sideways. And he's going, what are we going to do tonight? and he's even telling us that kind of in the pregame huddle, like, I can't throw it. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
So, I think that's, and I think that's just the nature of the business in Indiana. You've got to be able to run the ball in the playoffs, or you're not going to win.
That really, Kyle and I are very good friends, and he doesn't. He's coached at, I think it was at IU. He was at Drake, all that stuff. He's got a really great pedigree, great coach, great guy. I love talking to him.
Yep.
And he, his first year there, boy, they had a really good team. He had all the right pieces of the puzzle, and they were actually leading the nation in passing. And I told people, I said, man, if they can get a little bit of defense going, even if they couldn't, but if they could, they were willing to shoot out with anybody. I mean, they had plenty of games that were 60-something, 50. I mean, 49, 42, all that stuff. They shoot out, bring it on. They didn't care. They were throwing the ball for 400-something yards a night. The quarterback's averaging 5 touchdowns a game, and
Bumbleow was like the lead, had more touchdown receptions than anybody in America as a junior.
He broke the state record that year. That their strength ended up being their weakness, because the game they lost really was a game they shouldn't have lost, because it poured down rain that week, and they got beat. They got beat in their sectional in a game where they really couldn't throw the ball as effectively as they probably could have. And it cost them a little bit. And, it is. It's the risk. It's the risk you run, when you're when you're fully committed to that, and we're no different. We're fully committed to inside zone. We've already watched this game. When you go play someone like Michigan City, who's essentially built to stop you, boy, you're in trouble if you can't throw the ball. And that particular night, boy, could we not throw the ball.
Yeah.
And that can cost you a game. And you can lose because of that. So everybody kind of runs into a little bit of their counter at some point, but I would much rather, and it's not a knock on the system, but I would much rather the counter to us be your personnel, your discipline, your execution, and not because Mother Nature decides to just kind of take a dump on you that night, and rain and pour and mud and wind and all that. Like I'd much rather leave it up to the players on the field, not some gigantic storm system just moved in over New Pal, which happens for some unknown reason all the time, and just sit on top of us. So I'd rather have it be players, not rain clouds. So that's just me. Though I do love, I love the air raid stuff. I'm a huge fan of what those teams do. There's, again, as much as there's a beauty to what, I just said that a couple of times, what Harrison did with their triple option stuff and the way they do it. I just love the game of football. I love good air raid teams. Your Mike Leach's teams that he's coached, Texas Tech, Washington State, back when he was at Oklahoma. I'm sure what he's going to do at Mississippi State. You watch what Oklahoma's doing right now, with Lincoln Riley and that stuff is a little bit of the air raid. And I love watching that stuff. When it's done properly, it's beautiful. I love watching those guys at Newcastle do it. They run it exceptionally well. They do a great job of that stuff. And it really is. I'm just a fan of the game of football. So it isn't like there's something wrong with it, but
no,
that's my philosophy. That my philosophy is mine. Coach York's is Coach York's. Mike Leach's is Mike Leach's. We all are different people. But there's, again, when done properly, there's something incredible and beautiful to watch about all of them. Yeah,
we've really had our hands full with Newcastle a couple times since Kyle's been there. He does a great job. We saw Anderson in this year as well, and Ron Qualls, who
he's been
one of the best coaches in Indiana. He was so good at Heritage Christian for so long, and
he's a Hall of Famer.
So and I, like I said, I didn't say it to like air raid's dumb. I don't think air raid's dumb at all, but it like a lot of things, there's a risk reward, and that's one of the risks that you run, is that the dark storm cloud is over your field on Friday night, and when it is, if you can't find a way to run the ball, you're kind of hosed.
Yeah, I have seen some of those teams too that have that quarterback that can still do it even in the rain, and it doesn't matter. Like he can still function. You know, we went to that kid from Brownsburg in 7-on-7 in the absolute pouring down rain, and it didn't faze him at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually think after he threw it, the ball may have been drier than when it had initially come off of the towel, because he threw it so fast and so hard. I think the water just whipped off the ball. I mean, you know, some of those kids, they can handle that stuff, and you don't miss a beat, but some can't. So, yeah, that's that.
Yeah, he's committed to go to the Big 12. And, yeah, we saw him in that Colt 7-on-7 last summer. And the first play of the game, he throws about a 40-yard fade or 40-yard post and just on a rope in an absolute downpour. It's like, okay, all right, well, we're going to take our loss here, and we'll move on to our next opponent.
Dragons are getting ready to be 0-1 here. It's going to round 2.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, all right, Coach. Well, we'll stop here, and we'll get ready. We'll spend the weekend getting ready to talk about the 2015 state title game against Fort Wayne Snyder next week, which I know has been heavily requested. I know you've been dreading it a little bit. It's the first one of these that we're going to do, you know, that you lose. But
Yep.
A long night. This is going to take us a long time. There's a lot to cover, but hopefully, you know, our fans and coaches get something out of it.
Yeah. It's I'm going to spend the next 3 days just thinking happy thoughts. Just thinking happy thoughts here for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, because boy, there aren't a lot of happy thoughts that are going to come with this game. It really is. I mean, you know, I know a lot of people have been looking forward to this one. It's a great game. I mean, it is unfortunate we come out on the wrong side of it, but boy, is it a great game.
Mm-hmm.
And are there some? We've got a couple, you know, but I'm gonna tell you right now, there are some high level football players in this game. I think they had like 7 Division I kids on their team. I mean, there is some supreme talent you're going to watch play in this game, and we had some good players too. Now we had some good ones as well. So it's a heartbreaker, but it is a good one. It'll be a good inside the headset thing, because there's a lot that goes on during this game that has to be tweaked, adjusted, fixed, etc. We just can't plug enough holes, essentially. So yeah, painful.
All right, Coach. Well, we'll plan on seeing you Monday. Try to keep the blood pressure down this weekend, and we'll try to slug through it together.
I may just watch the film like this, and then I'll just make random comments as we go through, and hopefully they sync up with what's actually on the screen, and I'll just kind of, you know, fake my way through it here. Oh boy. But yeah, we'll see you guys on Monday.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
See ya.